With the season now over for the Minnesota Vikings after the wild card loss to the Giants, there's still a couple players that you want to bring back. And I think that, especially for the Vikings, there's some players that you didn't necessarily think were going to step up the way that they did, especially with the new coaching staff and everything, especially with the way that things started out for, not going to say it, Garrett Bradbury, it is what it is overall. But I think there are three players that you need to bring back if you were the Minnesota Vikings. Like, I know, Kyrus Tonga, Duke Shelley, those guys, yes, need to come back. Greg Joseph joins that list. Andrew DePaul, all those guys. I understand it. But there are three that absolutely need to come back if you ask me. And I think it all starts with, yes, Garrett Bradbury, who, before the season started, if the training camp days were any indication, it wasn't going to go good. Like, he was just getting pushed around, bowled around. It was the same old story with Garrett Bradbury, but he absolutely stepped up this year. Played 809 snaps for the Vikings, only had 4 penalties, did allow a couple of sacks, but overall finished the year with a 70.2 PFF grade, top 10 center in the league. It was fantastic. This dude absolutely balled out. He deserves a lot of credit. We'll get into the contract and how much he'll potentially cost. A spoiler alert, it's potentially $12 million, according to Spot Rack. A little high if you ask me, but we'll get into that in just a second. But at the end of the day, Garrett Bradbury did step up. Yes, I know that they declined his 5th-year option, and he's a guy that, everybody was kind of betting against, but he was a huge key piece for the Minnesota Vikings interior offensive line, and I think he needs to stick around in 2023 and beyond. Really, I think he's deserved a modest contract extension. Again, we'll get into the numbers in just a moment here. Now, the player to bring back number 2, I think, is cornerback Patrick Peterson, because yes, he's not the Patrick Peterson of old. He's not the All-Pro, the amazing guy. Even though technically he did receive votes this year, which was kind of cool. Like, he's just an absolute stud. And honestly, I really think that a guy like Patrick Peterson just deserves a lot of credit, because overall, for how things were really going for the Vikings secondary in terms of injuries, it wasn't fantastic. But Patrick Peterson, to me, I think that he's a guy that has earned himself a contract extension, and I don't think it's that far-fetched. I think we have seen some crazier things happen with a lot of different teams who bring back certain players, but Patrick Peterson, in my mind, has earned a contract extension, and I am bringing up the stats here in just a second, but I really feel like he's a guy that, he had a career high in tackles, by the way. It's 66. Usually as a corner, you don't love to say that, but it is what it is. Did have a total of 74 targets or 74 passes that were thrown his way, allowed 39 catches for 483 yards as well as 2 touchdowns, but had 5 interceptions. He was a leader in that DB room. Also, had a 80.7 PFF grade. So he was a guy that I was absolutely really ecstatic. I felt like he had a good year. And again, I know we'll get into the numbers, but at the end of the day, when you have a guy that stepped up the way that Patrick Peterson did, both as a leader and as a player this year, I think he deserves to be back. He's a player that the Vikings really need to see what they can do to make that happen. Player number 3 that needs to come back or be brought back by the Minnesota Vikings, running back Alexander Madison. Now, I'm going to get some flack for this one, and I'm fully prepared for it, because they've already got Kenny Nwangu, they've already got Ty Chandler, all of that. We all understand all of that. But Dalvin Cook is most likely going to be a cap casualty, if you will. He's most likely going to get cut. If they cut him, he's going to be like $6 million dead against the cap, but they save like some crazy numbers, like $8 to $10 million. Doesn't matter. They save a lot of money by letting Dalvin Cook hit the road. But Alexander Madison, to me, has really earned it. I mean, just you talk about a guy that just has been waiting for his chance to be a starter for the Vikings this year. Arguably had one of his better seasons. I had 5 total rushing touchdowns for the Vikings, as well as a total, and finishing his Vikings career this year at least, was 1,670 yards and 11 touchdowns. He's always been that back that's been there if the Vikings need him, and I think he deserves a contract extension. Here's why, especially when you look at the numbers. So I just want you to look at Alexander Madison. So yes, made over $867,000 this last year, and his market value, according to Spot Rack, for this year is $2.2 million. That's a lot better than whatever I think it's $10 million that Dalvin Cook is going to be hitting this year. So Alexander Madison, I think if you want to go cheap, if you want to go a guy or with a guy that can handle the load, that can at least give you a good starting running back in the NFL, like, I think Alexander Madison has earned that. Now, to Garrett Bradbury and Patrick Peterson, I mean, Garrett Bradbury, Spot Rack estimates his market value at $12 million. I don't know. I feel like you have a guy that, yes, did play very well, did step up in a lot of different ways, but it was 1 year. I think that the Vikings, could offer him that 6 to 8 range. I don't know if he'll take it, but overall, I think that there needs to be a discussion here to bring back Garrett Bradbury. Now, cornerback Patrick Peterson, I can't spell, but overall did have a market value of $6.4 million. Again, one of the top-rated corners according to PFF. Made $4 million this year. I mean, I get it if he doesn't come back, but I think that he's a guy that loves it in Minnesota, wants to continue to lead these guys. And if they want to give him $5-6 million, I wouldn't bat an eye. I wouldn't really be upset about it, especially with the way he played this year. I think he's still got potentially another year or two under his belt, and I think he can still do some really good things for the Vikings. And yes, Alexander Madison, rounding things out here. Again, I think if you are faced with a decision between Alexander Madison and Dalvin Cook, I think you go Madison at this point. I think he's cheaper. I think he's got less tread on the tires. I think you can still get 2 to 3 good years out of him, and potentially being your starting running back. And I think he could do a lot of good things for the Vikings. But that's it. Those are 3 players that we think the Minnesota Vikings need to bring back. Make sure you guys like and subscribe down below. Leave a like and a comment. It helps people find the show. We greatly appreciate all the support that we've gotten and continue to get. You guys are all truthfully awesome. We love every single one of you. Down in the description below, you'll find all of our social media platforms. So give us a like and a follow there. Also, remember to give us a listen and sub on iTunes. And finally, if you have anything else you'd like us to cover, send us an email at thesportsbp@yahoo.com or put it in the comment section down below, and we would love to cover it. But let us know what you guys think about the 3 players that we think the Minnesota Vikings need to bring back.